1. The Haunting of Willow Lake. Nestled in the heart of the dense forest, Willow Lake had always been a tranquil and picturesque camping destination. Families and nature enthusiasts flocked to its shores during the summer months, seeking respite from the hustle and bustle of the city. One warm July weekend, a group of friends, Sarah, Mike, Lisa, and Tom, decided to embark on a camping trip to Willow Lake. They had heard stories of its serene beauty and the abundance of wildlife in the area. It seemed like the perfect getaway. They arrived at the campsite, pitched their tents, and spent the day hiking along the trails that crisscrossed the woods. As evening descended, they gathered around a crackling campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing ghost stories. As the night deepened, an eerie stillness settled over the forest. The usual sounds of nocturnal creatures seemed to have vanished, leaving the group in a hushed silence that was punctuated only by the crackling of the fire. Sarah, an avid photographer, decided to capture the beauty of the moonlit lake. She ventured toward the water's edge, her camera in hand. The others watched as she framed her shot, capturing the shimmering reflection of the full moon on the tranquil surface. Just as Sarah was about to take her photo, she heard a faint whisper behind her. Startled, she turned, but there was no one there. She dismissed it as a trick of the wind and snapped her photo. But as the flash illuminated the area, it revealed a chilling sight. Standing at the water's edge was a figure, its back to Sarah. It appeared to be a woman, her long, disheveled hair flowing down her back. Sarah called out to the figure, asking if she was lost or needed help. There was no response. The figure remained motionless, facing the lake. Sarah cautiously approached, her heart pounding in her chest. When she reached out to touch the woman's shoulder, the figure turned slowly, revealing a face etched with sadness and despair. Her eyes were vacant and her lips moved soundlessly as if trying to convey a message. Terrified, Sarah stumbled backward, her friends rushing to her side. They saw the spectral figure too, standing by the water's edge, a ghostly presence that seemed to radiate sorrow. They decided to pack up and leave the campsite immediately, their fear overpowering their curiosity. As they retreated, they glanced back one last time to see the figure disappear into the moonlit mist. The group never returned to Willow Lake, their encounter with the mysterious apparition forever etched in their memories. They would later learn that the lake had a history of tragedies, including drownings and disappearances, leaving them to wonder if the ghostly woman they had encountered was a lost soul still seeking peace. The enigmatic footprints. Deep in the heart of the Adirondack Mountains, there existed a remote and secluded camping spot, known only to a few seasoned adventurers. It was a place untouched by modernity, a paradise for those seeking solitude and communion with nature. One crisp autumn weekend, a trio of friends, Ben, Emily, and Alex, embarked on a camping trip to this hidden gem. They were avid hikers and had heard tales of the pristine wilderness and untouched beauty of the area. Their journey into the heart of the Adirondacks was challenging, requiring them to traverse rugged terrain and ford rushing rivers. But the promise of pristine wilderness and untouched beauty drove them forward. They arrived at their secluded campsite, nestled in a small valley surrounded by towering pine trees. It was a place of breathtaking beauty, far removed from the trappings of civilization. They pitched their tents by the edge of a crystal-clear stream and spent the day hiking through the pristine forest. As night descended, they gathered around a campfire, its crackling flames providing a sense of warmth and security in the remote wilderness. The stars overhead shone with a brilliance only found in such remote locations. As they settled in for the night, they heard the distant call of an owl and the rustling of leaves in the forest. But there was something else, something unsettling about the night. They couldn't quite put their finger on it. In the morning, they discovered the source of their unease. Surrounding their campsite were dozens of footprints, human footprints, leading to and from the stream. It was as if someone had been walking around their campsite while they slept. They followed the footprints, their hearts pounding with trepidation. The tracks led deeper into the forest, becoming more erratic as they went. It was as if the person had been wandering aimlessly in the dark. Suddenly, they came upon a small, dilapidated cabin hidden deep in the woods. Its windows were shattered, and its door hung off its hinges. It was a chilling sight, a place that seemed to have been abandoned for years. Cautiously, they entered the cabin. their flashlights illuminating the decaying interior. As they explored, they found old newspapers and photographs, all dating back decades. The cabin seemed to be a relic of the past, frozen in time. Then they heard a soft whispering, a voice that seemed to echo through the cabin's walls. It was a woman's voice filled with sorrow and longing. They followed the sound, which led them to a small room at the back of the cabin. Inside the room, they discovered a diary, its pages filled with the handwritten entries of a woman named Evelyn. Her words spoke of loneliness, isolation, and a deep yearning for human connection. She wrote of a tragedy that had befallen her family, leaving her alone in the wilderness. As they read on, the entries grew more chilling. Evelyn spoke of strange occurrences in the forest, of eerie figures that seemed to watch her from the shadows. She described sleepless nights haunted by whispers and footsteps outside her cabin. The final entry was dated decades ago and spoke of a decision to leave the cabin and seek help. But there was an ominous tone to the words, as if Evelyn knew that she was leaving something behind, something that would never let her go. As they exited the cabin, they noticed that the footprints had disappeared, as if they had never been there. It was as if the cabin itself had drawn them in, revealing its secrets and then erasing all evidence of their presence. They left the remote wilderness of the Adirondacks, their encounter with the cabin and its enigmatic past forever etched in their memories. They couldn't help but wonder if Evelyn's spirit still lingered in the forest, a lost soul forever seeking connection in the wilderness. The Phantom Hunter. In the heart of the Smoky Mountains, there existed a hidden camping spot known only to a select few. It was a place of unparalleled beauty, where the dense forest stretched as far as the eye could see, and the stars shone with a brilliance unmatched by city lights. A group of friends, Jake, Megan, and Chris, decided to embark on a camping trip to this secluded paradise. They were avid outdoors enthusiasts and had heard stories of the pristine wilderness and abundant wildlife of the area. Their journey took them deep into the heart of the Smoky Mountains, where they pitched their tents near a pristine mountain stream. It was a place of breathtaking beauty, untouched by the trappings of modernity. As the day turned to night, they gathered around a campfire, sharing stories and laughter under the canopy of stars. The forest seemed alive with the sounds of night creatures, their calls and rustlings creating a symphony of nature. As they settled in for the night, they heard the distant call of an owl and the rushing of the nearby stream. But there was something else, something unsettling about the night. It was as if the forest held its breath, waiting for something to happen. In the early hours of the morning, Chris was awoken by a sound that chilled him to the bone, a distant, echoing gunshot. He shook Jake and Megan awake, and they listened in the darkness for any sign of danger. The forest was silent, as if the gunshot had never occurred. They wondered if it had been a hunter in the distance, but something about the sound had seemed off, as if it didn't belong in the tranquil wilderness. As they debated whether to investigate, they heard it again, the unmistakable sound of a gunshot, much closer this time. It echoed through the forest, sending shivers down their spines. They decided to leave their campsite immediately, fearing that they might be in the line of fire. But as they packed up their gear, they heard something that froze them in their tracks, a series of eerie, ghostly whispers seemingly carried on the wind. The whispers spoke of death and despair, of a hunter condemned to roam the forest for eternity. They spoke of a curse that had befallen him, a curse that bound him to the wilderness. Terrified but compelled to uncover the source of the haunting whispers, they followed the sound deeper into the forest. The moonlight illuminated their path, casting eerie shadows on the towering trees. They soon came upon a clearing where an old, dilapidated hunting cabin stood. Its windows were shattered, and its door hung off its hinges. It was a chilling sight, a place that seemed to have been abandoned for years. Cautiously, they entered the cabin, their flashlights revealing the decaying interior. As they explored, they found old hunting gear and trophies, all covered in dust and cobwebs. It was as if the cabin had been frozen in time. In a corner of the cabin, they discovered a journal, its pages filled with the handwritten entries of a man named Samuel. His words spoke of a love for hunting and the thrill of the chase. But as they read on, the entries grew darker, revealing a descent into obsession and madness. Samuel wrote of a fateful day when he had wounded a majestic buck, but had been unable to claim his prize. He spoke of a mysterious figure that had appeared in the forest, cursing him to roam the wilderness as a phantom hunter, forever seeking the elusive buck. The final entry was dated decades ago and spoke of Samuel's decision to leave the cabin and seek help. But there was a sense of hopelessness in his words, as if he knew that he was bound to the forest, unable to escape the curse that had befallen him. As they exited the cabin, they noticed that the forest had grown silent, as if the whispers had ceased. It was as if the cabin itself had drawn them in, revealing its secrets, and then silencing its haunting past. They left the Smoky Mountains, their encounter with the cabin and its enigmatic past forever etched in their memories. They couldn't help but wonder if Samuel's spirit still roamed the forest, a phantom hunter forever seeking his elusive prey. The mysterious disappearance. In the remote wilderness of the Pacific Northwest, there existed a pristine camping spot known only to a handful of intrepid explorers. It was a place of rugged beauty, where towering trees reached for the sky, and the sound of rushing rivers filled the air. A group of friends, Mia, Ethan, and Lily, decided to embark on a camping trip to this hidden haven. They were outdoor enthusiasts and had heard tales of the untouched wilderness and abundant wildlife of the area. Their journey into the heart of the Pacific Northwest was challenging, requiring them to navigate dense forests and ford rushing rivers. But the promise of unspoiled wilderness and breathtaking vistas drove them forward. They arrived at their secluded campsite, nestled on the banks of a pristine river. It was a place of unparalleled beauty, far removed from the trappings of modernity. They pitched their tents and spent the day hiking through the lush forest. As night descended, they gathered around a campfire, its warm glow providing a sense of comfort in the remote wilderness. The stars overhead shone with a brilliance only found in such isolated locations. As they settled in for the night, they heard the distant call of an owl and the rustling of leaves in the forest. But there was something else, something unsettling about the night. It was as if the forest held its breath, as if it were waiting for something to happen. In the middle of the night, Mia was awoken by a sound that sent a chill down her spine, a distant echoing cry for help. She woke Ethan and Lily, and together they listened in the darkness for any sign of distress. The cry came again, closer this time, and it was unmistakably human. They knew they had to investigate, fearing that someone might be in danger. With flashlights in hand, they followed the sound deeper into the forest. The forest was eerily silent as they ventured into its depths, the only sound the rushing of the river in the distance. They soon came upon a small clearing where they discovered a tent pitched haphazardly. Cautiously, they entered the tent, their flashlights revealing a scene of chaos. Sleeping bags were tossed about, and supplies were strewn across the floor. It was as if the occupants had fled in a hurry. Then they heard it again, the cry for help, this time coming from deeper in the forest. They followed the sound, their hearts pounding with trepidation. It led them to a narrow trail that disappeared into the trees. As they ventured further along the trail, they stumbled upon a journal, its pages filled with handwritten entries. It belonged to a woman named Sarah, and her words spoke of a solo camping trip in the wilderness. Sarah wrote of the beauty of the forest and the solitude she had found in its depths. But as they read on, the entries grew more unsettling. She described strange occurrences in the night, of eerie shadows and ghostly whispers that seemed to haunt her campsite. The final entry was dated only a few nights ago and spoke of a chilling encounter. Sarah had heard the cries for help in the darkness, and when she had ventured out of her tent to investigate, she had been met with a sense of overwhelming dread. She wrote of a presence in the forest, a malevolent force that seemed to watch her every move. She feared that she was being hunted, that something in the wilderness wanted to claim her. As they continued down the trail, they found themselves in a small clearing, where they discovered a backpack and a pair of hiking boots. It was as if Sarah had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only her belongings. The cry for help came again, this time echoing through the trees closer than ever. It sent shivers down their spines, and they knew they had to leave the forest immediately, fearing that they too might become victims of whatever malevolent force had claimed Sarah. They retreated from the wilderness of the Pacific Northwest, their encounter with the mysterious disappearance forever etched in their memories. They couldn't help but wonder if Sarah's spirit still haunted the forest, a lost soul forever seeking answers to the enigmatic forces that had claimed her. The Phantom Camper. In the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, there existed a remote camping spot known only to a select few adventurers. It was a place of pristine beauty, where the rugged terrain and dense forests created a sanctuary for those seeking solace in nature. A group of friends, James, Emma, and Daniel, decided to embark on a camping trip to this hidden gem. They were experienced outdoors enthusiasts and had heard tales of the untouched wilderness and pristine streams of the area. Their journey into the heart of the Appalachians was challenging, requiring them to navigate steep slopes and dense underbrush. But the promise of unspoiled wilderness and the chance to disconnect from the modern world drove them forward. They arrived at their secluded campsite, nestled in a valley surrounded by towering peaks. It was a place of breathtaking beauty, far removed from the trappings of civilization. They pitched their tents and spent the day hiking through the rugged terrain. As night descended, they gathered around a campfire, its crackling flames providing a sense of warmth and security in the remote wilderness. The stars overhead shone with a brilliance only found in such isolated locations. As they settled in for the night, they heard the distant call of an owl and the rustling of leaves in the forest. But there was something else, something unsettling about the night. It was as if the forest held its breath, waiting for something to happen. In the middle of the night, James was awoken by a sound that sent a shiver down his spine, a faint echoing voice calling out in the darkness. He woke Emma and Daniel, and together they listened for any sign of distress. The voice came again, a desperate plea for help, and it was unmistakably human. They knew they had to investigate, fearing that someone might be in danger. Armed with flashlights, they followed the sound deeper into the forest. The forest was eerily silent as they ventured into its depths, the only sound the distant rush of the nearby stream. They soon came upon a small clearing, where they discovered an old tattered tent. Cautiously they entered the tent, their flashlights revealing a scene of disarray. Sleeping bags were torn open, and supplies were scattered across the floor. It was as if the occupants had fled in a panic. Then they heard it again, the voice this time closer, as if it were just beyond the trees. They followed the sound, their hearts pounding with trepidation. It led them to a narrow trail that wound deeper into the forest. As they ventured further along the trail, they stumbled upon a backpack and a hiking jacket, abandoned on the ground as if their owner had hastily discarded them. It was a chilling sight, a sign that someone had been in distress. The voice came again, echoing through the trees, desperate and pleading. It sent shivers down their spines, and they knew they had to leave the forest immediately, fearing that they too might become victims of whatever unseen force had claimed the camper. They retreated from the wilderness of the Appalachians, their encounter with the Phantom Camper forever etched in their memories. They couldn't help but wonder if the voice they had heard was the desperate plea of a lost soul, forever trapped in the remote wilderness, forever seeking escape from the enigmatic forces that had claimed them.